So in today's videos, we're going to be looking at factoring polynomials with a degree above 2. So our first example here we have is a cubic function. It's x cubed minus 9x squared plus 23x minus 15, which is equal to 0. Right, so our first step is to factor out a common monomial if possible. If you look at our function here, we can't really factor out anything as it already is as simplified as possible. So in this case, we're just going to move on to our next step. Alright, so our next step is to find all the factors for d. So what that basically means is that, as you recall, a cubic function goes like this: x3 plus bx squared plus cx plus d, which is equal to 0. So in this case, our d will be negative 15. Now we need to find an x value that will give us 0 as an answer. In order to do that, we look at the factors of d when there's no a constant. So for example, factors of negative 15 can be positive 1, negative 1, positive negative 3, positive negative 5, as well as positive and negative 15. Alright, so we're going to try each of these sets of numbers here and see which one will give us a value of 0. Alright, so if we try f of negative 1, we get negative 30. In this case, we know negative 1 cannot be a factor since it doesn't give us a value of 0. We can try f of 1, which actually gives us 0. So in that case, you know that f of 1 is a factor. So we write it like this. So x is equal to 1. We want to rearrange this so that it's equal to 0. So instead we're going to do x minus 1 is equal to 0, which is the same thing as this one, just rearranging it. So in this case, x minus 1 is a factor. Alright, so now we're going to move on to our third step, which is proceeding to the long division. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dividing x cubed minus 9x squared plus 23x minus 15 with x minus 1. So our first value here will be x squared. This will give us x cubed. Negative 1 times x squared gives us negative 1x squared. Now you do have to keep in mind that you are subtracting this, so we're just going to write this down here in brackets. Right, so then when we subtract x cubed with x cubed, we get 0, so you can just cancel this out. And then we have to do negative 9x squared plus 1x squared, which will give us negative 8x squared. Right, so we're going to move the plus 23x down here. Right, so to get negative x squared, we're just going to do negative 8x. This will be negative 8x squared. And then this will be positive 8x. And like I said, keep in mind that you are subtracting this. So put this in brackets. This becomes negative 8x squared plus 8x squared, which eventually gives us just 0. 23x minus 8x gives us 15x. And then we bring down our negative 15. Alright, so our next value up here is going to be plus 15. That will give us 15x. And negative 1 times 15 will be negative 15. When you subtract this, you get 0. And always make sure that you do get an answer of 0 and no remainder left. Otherwise, you have done something wrong when dividing. Alright, so our answer here is x squared minus 8x plus 15. We're now going to move on to our fourth step, which is basically factoring the trinomial we got from the long division. So we first started out with x cubed minus 9x squared plus 23x minus 15 equal to 0. We got x minus 1 as our first factor, and then we got x squared minus 8x plus 15 from the long division. Now we can simplify this and factor this out even further. If you remember from my previous video, so because this is a simple trinomial, just going to put the x here, and we're going to do this as 5, 3, and they'll both be negative. So in this case, x is equal to 1, or x is equal to 5, or x is equal to 3. Alright, so for a second example, we're going to be factoring polynomials with an a constant that's greater than or less than 1. So for example here, we have 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 5x plus 6, which is equal to 0. Right, so our first step is to see if there are any common monomials that we can factor out. In this case, we don't have any common monomials that we can factor out. So we're going to move on to our second step. Right, so our second step will be to find the factors by dividing the a constant by the d. So because in this example we do have an a constant here, our factors do change up by a bit. It's basically just the factors of a over d. So a is divisible by both plus minus 1. It's also divisible by plus minus 2. Now if you go to the fractions part, we have to look at 6 as well. So plus minus 1 over 2 plus minus 1 over 3 and plus minus 1 over 6. Now if we tried f of 1, we do happen to get 0, so in this case x minus 1 is a factor. We now then proceed towards a third step, which is factoring the polynomials through long division. So to get a 2x cubed, we need to multiply this by 2x squared. In that case, we get 2x cubed minus 2x squared. Right, so this will give us 0 here, so we can cancel this out, and then make sure to remember that this is subtracting, so this will become negative 3x squared plus 2x squared, which is equal to negative 1x squared. We move the 5x squared down, so this becomes negative 5x squared. Right, and to get negative x squared, we just multiply this by negative 1x. We then get negative 1x squared plus 1x. Right? So this will be 0, this will be negative 6 plus 6. We multiply this by negative 6. We then get negative 6 plus 6. When you subtract this, this becomes a 0 as well. So now basically we just need to make sure we further simplify the function we were given. So we started with 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. We got x minus 1 as a factor, and then we got 2x squared minus 1x minus 6 from the long division. We can further simplify this. This is a more complex trinomial. If you don't know how to factor this, you can look at my previous video. But basically this will be x minus 2, and this will be 2x plus 3. So therefore x will be equal to 1, or x can be equal to 2, or x can be equal to negative 3 over 2. Right, thank you for watching my video. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and like for more.